Right, we have been talking about students for a little while now. Now, I guess one of the questions is, why are students so popular? What is why the student market? Why is everybody talking about students? Why do they want students? Well, there are a number of reasons why students can be a preferable tenant. Students are kind of richer. They are paid. They get given a grant or a loan, depending on who you are, and that comes from government, and that gets paid every term. So a lot of landlords, or a lot of agencies, or agencies for landlords, or whoever they are, they take that payment termly, so 3 times a year, and so that makes it so as soon as they're paid, they pay the rent out of their grant or their loan, and that guarantees the rent. So it's a lot better when you have that rent paid, so it's more guaranteed. Does that make sense? Some people's business model may also be different. What tends to happen is students go every year. Sometimes they might stay 2, sometimes 3 if it's really nice, and that can be good. If you have a family that moves in, they could be in there 10-15 years or longer. I mean, we have one person who's been over there 20 years. Your business model might be related to, I might want to keep this house for 3 or 4 years and turn it over, flip it, sell it, move it, I don't know what, change the group, change the tenancy type. So if the students tend to go every year or every 2 years, maximum before, they could stay, but then they wouldn't be students, and nobody's going to really want to live in shared accommodation their entire life. Then people like that business model. You can charge more for students as well, and you say, well, how does that work with the market rate? You say, well, kind of easy really. When somebody is on £20,000-25,000 a year and they're working really hard and they're doing overtime and trying to push it up to 28,000-29,000, and when you are paying for your rent, it's very hard to part with money that you've earned. Ask anybody who's earned their way through it, and then ask anybody who's been given money. So in that instance, when you get given a grant or a loan for your student course, what tends to happen is that money is much easier to part with, because you're going to hand it over, and whereas somebody's going to begrudgingly be giving you rent. But there is a biggie. It's a really biggie. A biggie. The biggie what for students is, because it's classed as temporary accommodation and not permanent accommodation, there's no spatial standards. So spatial standards in this city are relatively strict. They have them. You can get under, but you have to apply for planning permission and have to show a reason. And there has been discussion of are there spatial standards for temporary accommodation, and there aren't, but then they're getting so small. In this city, Bristol, there was even question because it was a little tongue-in-cheek and it wasn't quite right, but they were saying it's basically the size of a car parking space. Now that's not quite true, but it's not a million miles off. If you have a car parking space size for shared living, where does it stop? Now, a hotel would be different, and you see these tiny hotel rooms where you have like a cubicle. Well, you're only going to stay there one night, maybe 2, maybe 3. You're not going to live there, are you? So the spatial standards don't apply to student accommodation. Now, what that means is that you get, say, a 3-bed semi. The clue there is in the title, 3-bed semi, but it's not a 3-bed semi, is it? You can get 4 beds quite easily because you take the living room, and sometimes they might have 2 rooms down there, and you can get 5 rooms. 5 rooms quite easy. You still got a kitchen. You build an extension, a little one, you get 6, 7. You go up into the loft, 8, 9. Now, I know this is very, very true because the guy did it up our road, the very road I live in. And he built, I think, 4 HMOs up there, maybe 5, I can't remember now. And he built big back extensions, 2-story extensions, loft conversions, back to brick. Oh, he built them, and I think there's like a 10 bed, a 10 bed, a 9 bed, a 9 bed, and a 10 bed. So it can be done. Now, the multipliers on that for the rent are absolutely fantastic, aren't they? All you have to do is, well, you give very good accommodation, but then you throw in the internet. You can charge £850, £950, £1,000 per room. What, 10 times £1,000 per room? £10,000 a month per house? And you wonder why people want students? In effect, without spatial standards, you're kind of cheating. But it's not cheating, it's perfectly legal. But you're not having to comply to what everybody else has to comply with. So you build a single dwelling, and it's got to be 37 or 39 square meters, depending on shower or bath. Minimum. Well, that's the minimum, the bare minimum. So let's just round it up and say it's even 40 square meters. That's not even close to student accommodation. Now, I've been to a student's house, and it's been quite recently as well, in the last few months, and I had a look in there. And what tends to happen is, I think in this one there was 6, they built a rear extension, and it was as claustrophobic as can be. And one bedroom had no windows, but it had this huge roof light. Yeah, I'm not sure, oh, there you are. But it also meant that their living, dining, kitchen room was one room, and yeah, there's about the size of a car parking space, because they didn't have to comply to spatial standards. What that means is that any developer, landlord can cram as many people as they want in to the smallest accommodation. So you can get a 3-bed semi. Now, these people that build the extensions and the loft conversions, they take it pretty seriously. Although the one I did look at was not very well designed. It was claustrophobic. But if it is well designed, you still don't have to comply to the spatial standards, and you get, like, I mean, these bedrooms had, and I have been in these, but this was a couple of years ago, 10 bedrooms. 10 bedrooms, that's 10,000 a month. 120,000 a year from one house. Now, that house is quite big because it's been developed. It's not particularly big because it started off as a 3-bed semi, but there wasn't much left of it by the time they finished. So it's a money thing, isn't it? The multipliers work out because it's big money, but a vast majority of the time you get a 3-bed semi, and if an extension has already been built, or you divide up the large living room in the middle, what tends to happen is you can get 5 bedrooms out of a 3-bed semi with very little investment, a little bit of plasterboard and a few fire doors. Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt, you've got 5 bedrooms. Now, you only got half what a 10-bedroom is, duh. But you haven't got any of the expenditure of planning, building regs, and then you got all the necessary permissions, and then all the costs of building huge extensions and loft conversions. So it's basically money. You don't have to spend so much to get a large yield or large return on investment, and by the time you're finished, you have this huge house. But if you've spent all that money and you've now got a 10-bed, there is an issue there. Okay, you're going to have 2 ovens and 2 fridges and 2 washing machines, and that's great. But it's very, very tenant specific. Because if you go out of that tenant group and you're now looking at other tenants where normal, so like professionals that are going to live there, now you have to comply to the spatial standards. The first thing you do is decommission 2 bedrooms because you don't have the necessary room. And so if the house has been designed around it and you've got all these bedrooms with en suites, well, that's going to give you a problem when you come around to decommissioning a couple of bedrooms to give you the living and standard space, because you've got bedrooms there, you've got bathrooms there which need to be removed. The new Renters Reform Bill comes in and everything kind of changes. The student market is no longer the, I wouldn't say the cash cow that it was, although it could be a cash cow. It's gonna even up the marketplace a lot, especially if tenants can leave early. and as I've previously discussed, if they can stay later, subject to section 4A, and if you've done it right and if there is a right way, because obviously there's no test cases. But okay, things are a changing.